Good afternoon, everybody. As of today, every eligible adult in England can use the national booking service to get boosted now. If you're over 18 and had your second jab at least 3 months ago, then you can get jabbed right now. And it's absolutely vital that you do, because the wave of Omicron continues to roll in across the whole of our United Kingdom, with over 780,000 COVID cases today, the highest ever daily number reported. And the doubling rate of Omicron in some regions is now down to less than 2 days. And I'm afraid we're also seeing the inevitable increase in hospitalizations, up by 10% nationally week on week, and up by almost a third in London. But we are also seeing signs of hope, because since we launched our emergency Omicron appeal on Sunday night, a great national fight back has begun. And people have responded with an amazing spirit of duty and obligation to others. And I want to say that each and every one of you who rolls up your sleeve to get jabbed is helping this national effort. And I want to thank everyone who has come forwards, whether you've had to queue around the block at a walk-in centre or whether you've booked online. And of course, on behalf of the whole country, I want to thank our NHS, our GPs, our pharmacists, who with barely a day's notice, 48 hours notice, have so accelerated the programme that we began this week with the biggest vaccination Monday ever in England, and yesterday, the biggest booster day yet, with more than 650,000 boosters delivered across the whole UK. And across the country, after all they've been through, those teams are going to keep going through Christmas and beyond. Jab heroes like Kim Kirk, leading the King's Mill Hospital vaccination hub in Mansfield, who was asked a year ago to do it for 4 weeks and has been doing it ever since, with 180,000 jabs and counting. Dr. Laura Mount and the team at Central and West Warrington Primary Care Network, who've been organising pop-up vaccination clinics for the homeless. Or the team at Home Park in Plymouth, who have been regularly jabbing until 2 a.m. because they just carry on for as long as there are people there wanting a booster. And I want to thank those from every walk of life who are stepping forward to support them. The military personnel deployed across every region of the country, including an additional 100 in Scotland from yesterday, as well as 2,500 firefighters. And since Sunday night, we've seen more than 20,000 new volunteers signing up to help with the booster effort as stewards, taking the total number to almost 33,000. With every day, we're expanding the ranks of these healthcare auxiliaries, an emerging territorial army of the NHS in a race against time to get those jabs in arms and save lives. And if you're watching this and you want to get involved, just visit the website nhsvolunteerresponders.org.uk and do something this Christmas that you can tell your grandchildren about many Christmases from now. In total, we've boosted more than 45% of all adults in England, including more than 88% of those aged 70 or over. And while hospital admissions are going up, nationwide, we're starting to see admissions coming down among some of the more vulnerable older age groups where we've already got those boosters in arms. From tomorrow, we're speeding things up even further by removing the 15-minute post-vaccination waiting time. And while we're at it, from Monday, 12 to 15-year-olds can book in for a second jab. And we know how crucial it is to keep children in school, so let's all make sure our children and young people are vaccinated before they go back next term. As we take forward our national mission, we're of course supporting similar efforts by the devolved administrations, which are also rapidly increasing vaccination rates across Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. A COBRA meeting with Edinburgh, Cardiff and Belfast is taking place this evening. But already, the pace of rollout across the 4 nations is such that the UK as a whole now has twice as many boosters per head as the EU and more than twice as many as the United States. So let's keep going. Let's keep giving Omicron both barrels, and let's slow its spread and give the vaccines more time. Wear face masks indoors, use ventilation, get tested if you're going to an event where you're likely to meet lots of people, and get tested if you're going to meet elderly or vulnerable relatives. And we're helping you to get the tests that you need. I want to thank the Royal Mail, who are doubling home deliveries of testing kits to 900,000 a day from Saturday. So let's slow down Omicron's spread, and at the same time, let's reduce the harm Omicron can do to us by building up our vaccine defences. We're jabbing in hospitals, we're jabbing in surgeries, we're jabbing in pharmacies and in pop-up centres, we're jabbing in shopping centres and on high streets, in football stadiums, with mass events planned at Stamford Bridge and Wembley this weekend, and daily jabathons at Elland Road in Leeds. We are throwing everything at it, and wherever you are, we'll be there with a jab for you. So please, get boosted now. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask Chris to do the slides.
Thank you, Prime Minister. First slide, please. I'll start off with slides that people have seen before, the updates, but I think there is an important thing to point out on this slide, which is the very high spike on the very far right of this slide. And as the Prime Minister said, this is a record number of cases. I'm afraid we have to be realistic that records will be broken a lot over the next few weeks as the rates continue to go up. If we look at the overall rates, it looks as if Delta, which we've had with us for a while, is still flat, and the growth is Omicron. So what we've got is two epidemics on top of one another, an existing Delta epidemic, roughly flat, and a growing Omicron, very rapidly growing Omicron epidemic on top of it. Next slide, please. When it comes to hospitalisations, this really always, of course, reflects where we were two or more weeks ago, and therefore the rates have remained reasonably flat over quite a while, reflecting where we've been with Delta over the last several weeks. So rates are currently flat, but they are beginning to increase in some places, particularly in London. Next slide, please. And deaths, of course, reflect what happened even earlier in time. And those are still, if anything, going down very slightly. But this, of course, doesn't reflect anything in terms of Omicron because the emergence of Omicron and its spread is far too recent. Next slide, please. Dr. Kanani is going to talk more about the vaccination in a minute, but I just wanted to give a visual picture of the speed at which the initial rollout, that's in blue, the second dose, which is in orange, and now the booster rollout is occurring in red. And as you can see, it's going up very rapidly and accelerating, and that will continue to happen over the next period of time. Next slide, please. When I showed this slide at the last session, people said they wanted a bit more time on it, and I want to make 2 points on it. What this shows is what the hospitalisation rates and different age groups, where in the dark bars are people who are not vaccinated, and the orange bars are the people who are vaccinated with 2 doses. First point, this provides massive amounts of protection against hospitalisation against Delta. This is what we're showing. But what we're expecting to happen with Omicron is that some of that difference is going to be eroded because it is the vaccines are less well matched to the Omicron variant. This is what the laboratory data are implying. We don't have clear clinical data yet. And therefore, the point of the booster is to try and get people back to as good a position in terms of replicating this really good protection after they've had their booster dose. It will additionally provide protection against Delta and other variants. So that is really what we're aiming to do. But this is, when people say, do vaccines work? I really do think if people look at these data, they cannot really argue, except that vaccines are remarkable at working. But people do still go into hospital even when they're double vaccinated, and they will still go into hospital even after boosters. But their risks are much reduced. Next slide, please. Now moving on to Omicron. And what I'm showing here is a screening test for Omicron. These aren't genotype things. This is what's called S-gene target failure, but now any S-gene target failure pretty well represents an Omicron case. And the reason we're showing this is you get these data earlier than you get the data from the full genotyping. So it's more up to date. Now, I'd like to point out two things with this. The first of which is the count of numbers is now going up very fast. I'd like to point out also that the greyed out bars, those data are incomplete and will increase. Again, I saw some commentary that said, oh, that shows it's going away next time. The last bits of data, and the same is true in the UK, it's also true incidentally in South Africa, the last bits of data will always increase as new data comes in. But both the numbers, but also the percentage of cases is steadily rising. So an increasing percentage of all of our cases is now Omicron. But that's not because Delta's going away, it's because Omicron's being built on top of that. Next slide, please. The final slide I wanted to show is really just to show that this is happening across the whole of England. It's also happening very clearly in Scotland and beginning to happen in Wales and Northern Ireland. But these are data from England. In London, now the majority of cases in London are going to be Omicron. And therefore, that is going to be where we will be from the time we get to probably Christmas onwards. I would expect most cases going to hospital to start to be Omicron cases. I would like to make one final point before I hand on over to Dr. Kanani, which is I think that there has been a certain amount of commentary about the fact that doctors and scientists from South Africa, and I really want to pay huge tribute to South African science and medicine, what they've done so quickly has been remarkable, have indicated that there may be some reduction in the hospitalisation rates they're seeing with Omicron. And I want to put a really serious caution on this, because I think it has been overinterpreted. The first caution on this is simply a numerical one. If the rate of hospitalisation were to halve, but you're doubling every 2 days, in 2 days you're back to where you were before you actually had the hospitalisation. If the peak of this is twice as great, then halving of the mortality, the hospitalisation rate, you still end up in the same place. And this peak is going very fast. But the second point I wanted to make, which I'm not sure has fully been absorbed by everybody, is that the amount of immunity in South Africa for this wave, because of a prior Delta wave in vaccination, is far higher than it was for their last wave. And therefore, the fact that there is a lower hospitalisation rate is unsurprising. So if you think about what happened to us in the UK with our alpha wave in January, February this year, the infection hospitalisation rate for people over 65 was around 22% prior to vaccination. Once you have a lot of immunity due to primarily vaccination and then also some natural infection, the infection hospitalisation rate in the same age group has dropped to 6%. That's just because there's more immunity. Well, there is more immunity in South Africa now than there was in their last wave. Therefore, some degree of drop is to be expected. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't some degree of slightly milder disease. That is possible. But I just think there's a danger people have overinterpreted this to say, this is not a problem, and what are we worrying about? I want to be clear. I'm afraid this is going to be a problem. Exact proportions of it, of course, South African scientists and UK scientists and scientists globally are trying to determine at the moment. I'd like to just pass on for the last slide to Dr. Kanani. Nikki.
Nikki, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So there is clearly one single challenge that our country faces right now, but we have two asks of you as a member of the public. One is please come forward and get your booster. And if you're unvaccinated, come forward and get your first dose. Or if you're severely immunosuppressed, get your third dose. Your vaccine is there and it's waiting for you. And our second ask is please help your incredible NHS team. Come and work with us as a volunteer or a paid member because we need your help. Since the Prime Minister and our Chief Exec, Amanda Pritchard, set out the call to the nation, the national mission around vaccination, we've seen an incredible response. And it's the sort of response we've seen all through the pandemic and through the first part of the vaccination programme. People have come forward again and again to help us, but to get protected as well. And as I've been around the country visiting vaccination sites, I have seen queues around the block, but people have been incredibly kind and thoughtful and patient, looking after our NHS teams while they wait to get protected. Our NHS teams have done an incredible job. Day on day, we are now seeing record-breaking numbers. Yesterday, we saw an incredible amount of vaccinations delivered by community pharmacy alone, absolutely through the roof, and they're doing a fantastic job. But you need to do your part. From today, you're able to book an appointment online to get your vaccination if you're over the age of 18. You go to the national booking system and you can book a time and date that suits you near to where you live. Or if you're travelling, you could book somewhere near to the work that you have to do if you're an essential worker, because we're making it more convenient than ever to get protected. We've already vaccinated over 20 million people with their booster doses. That's over half of eligible 18 and overs and 3/4 of eligible 50 pluses. That's a huge number. And today, when we open the national booking service to everybody who's eligible over 18, we had over 500,000. So that's over 500,000 bookings by the time I left the office to come over here. So I know that everybody wants to play their part. So thank you for coming forward when you're asked to. Thank you for booking now that you're able to. My thanks, of course, need to go to our NHS and voluntary teams who once again are pulling out all the stops. I know that you're tired. I know that this feels hard, but I also know that you can do it. I've heard from countless people around the country saying, we want to help you, we want to help the programme, we want to respond to the mission, because fighting Omicron is the most important thing that we can do. But I want to reassure you that while our GP teams who have been delivering the lion's share of vaccinations will be vaccinating more again, they will also protect urgent and life-saving care alongside cancer care. So be patient with your NHS and with your general practice teams, because they're trying to do everything to protect you as quickly as possible. As the Prime Minister said, our teams are getting out into the community, just like at the beginning of the programme. We are going door to door to look after the housebound. We are asking the severely immunosuppressed to get protected as quickly as possible with their booster if they've already had their first 3 doses. We're asking teachers to come forward during the school holidays to get protected before school starts again. We have got pop-ups, we've got mobile units. We're working with community and faith leaders to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to get this protection. So please come forward. And as the Prime Minister said, we have lots of opportunities to help. I know of many people, many of my friends who I'm incredibly proud of, who are busy as it is, who are saying, I want to come forward and I want to help at vaccination sites around the country. And any little that you can do will help us to deliver this enormous ask. Our team are working as quickly as possible to get volunteers onto the front line. And I just want to make sure that you know that you can all play your part. Get tested when you're asked to and follow the government guidelines. Make sure that you focus on getting your booster if you haven't already. And if you're able to, come forward and join this fight against Omicron. Because I promise you, if you can come and help us, our NHS will be here for you. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Nikki, and thank you for everything that you and your teams are doing. It's absolutely amazing. Can we go now to questions from the public? Teresa.
See the headlines as they happen and watch BBC News live.